Is this Cassandra?
No, it's someone named another viewer.
Oh, really? Interesting.
First we start the recording and then start the stream. Do the sound checks.
Sound check.
Everything.
And once everything's ready, it's time to go to the Villains Talk Show. I'm gonna copyright that. Damn good at that now. Hello and welcome to the Villains Talk Show. I am C4. Beside me is the Great Grease Goblin. Below me is Insanieac. Hello again. And across from me is Sir Jeremy. Sarah Vike will join us later, and we are the villains of your Villains Talk Show, where we talk about random things and random stuff. And that's pretty much a good sum. I cover all bases with that. And okay, introduction aside. Today we are talking about the apocalypse. The apocalypse. Whether it be in religion, whether it be folklore, someone's mic is dying.
That's insane.
Insaniacs, we're gonna turn you down so your mic doesn't die and kill everything. We're talking about apocalypse in games. We're talking about, and then once we get that revved up, we're gonna kind of fold over to apocalypse in story making and apocalypse in writing, and yeah, because right, fiction, a lot of post-apocalyptic worlds, and that doesn't just to be fair, you can't be like, oh, post-apocalyptic worlds when a bunch of nukes or when this event goes across the world. You could do it like World of Warcraft, where it's like the cataclysm, where it's a huge event that still shapes the world in some way, but it's then living in the aftermath is usually what is meant by post-apocalyptic. An apocalyptic event could be, I mean, if you go back to like Pompeo and all that.
Does that mean that the birth of Doc was apocalyptic unknowing?
Yes, the birth of our D&D child was apocalyptic. Technically. And then post-apocalyptic there was technically two post-apocalyptic scenes. The one where he blew up and then we had to deal with the explosion that we didn't really deal with. And then there's the other one. But that's detracting. That being said, yeah. I don't know if you guys want to start talking or just let me keep going, but I remember.
I hear the sound of your beautiful voice.
I know. Me and Jeremy especially remember back to my first apocalyptic event that kind of sputtered out and sucked was the Y2K virus. In fact, follow me on Twitter, Y2K virus.
It was
and if I remember correctly, because I'm not going to look this up, I'm going to.
I don't think anything eventful actually happened.
That's not true. If I remember correctly. So what it was supposed to be, what we were told it was going to be, is all the computers get another number or something, and there's hits 2,000 because they can't. Because everyone thought that Turing was smart enough to kind of compute that, but in the event, they actually found that higher grade computers that could do higher levels of calculations could, because Turing was a smart guy, even though he was dead before he saw the first computer. That being said, what I did hear is a bunch of computers in Russia failed just because they weren't upgraded enough. It came down to computing power. If I mean, I could be utterly mistaken.
It happened around the world.
Yeah.
Sorry?
There's computers that failed in hospitals. A couple failed in airports.
Okay, so there was more than just Russia, but I think, if I remember correctly, it was a computing power. And
the idea was they didn't put. So what fucking happened was they were lazy when they put in the dates, and they never calculated for your computer to turn. Were in 19. The 19 was already programmed. when they first made the computers, right? So the last 2 digits of the that changed. When it was going to restart us over to 1900.
Okay.
And that's what happened to a few computers. And computers are told to update and do a bunch of shit by dating. Sometimes start wrong.
Ah.
That's interesting.
That is really interesting, actually. I never knew that. Please. So it wasn't, it was just overblown, is what we're saying.
Yes and no. In some places, like they had a minor collapse, I guess would be the best way to say it. Like they didn't really collapse, but bad shit did happen. Like the sky, like they said they were going to. But...
Yeah, you said your...
Yeah, no, a lot of computers lost some information because of it.
You said your mom worked on this, right?
Online e-support, they actually invented the program that allows you to remote control a computer for e-support.
Really?
It was a company in the late 90s, early 2000s. She went to NASA as a part of that too, in installing this remote control program into the NASA computers in the States.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, she was working mostly with, actually what's funny is the Twin Towers and the banks specifically in the Twin Towers.
That's
very intimate with some people when that whole thing went down.
Sorry to hear that. On a side note, though, I would name my computer company or my program company Alt F4.
Alt F4, yeah. Well, Control F1 is another our thing, but
Kit says there were Apple, and Apple made them so slow that they died. And they do it to all the old iPhones. I think of how Godney goes nuclear in Civilization. It was a bug with the peacefulness was at 1, and when it went to 0, instead it turned it up to 10. Imagine all the computers doing that. That's funny.
Up to 11, sir.
Up to 11. Oh, that's pretty good. But yeah, and then I guess the next one, not an apocalypse, would be the 9/11. Like, as much as people don't want to believe it, I remember being in university and it was about as the herald of the decline of the Western civilization. It went down after that. It's kind of funny.
Well, they're based on
Osama bin Laden
crushed corporate America. It was a way to do corporate America, what they were trying to do. I mean, it was a horrible way to do it as well.
they don't us. If we kill their civilians, everyone will love us. Exactly. This is just common destabilization.
Yeah.
Guys, Andrew, there's actually something wrong with your mic. It is so staticky.
Andrew, you're dying over there.
I don't know.
Myself on mute the whole time.
I think
Really? Yeah, you're
when,
burning
all of a
the
sudden,
whole time.
yeah, all of a sudden you're not staticky. I think it's when you put yourself on mute, it puts the static.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
I was gonna say on mute your words.
You can't hide the sound of the. Sorry.
Yeah,
What's
no,
better now?
it like right now it's fine.
Oh, you're fine now. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
it's
old
absolutely
before
fine now.
Before the mic
Oh.
change.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, like it's absolutely fine now. But
Yeah, nice.
that being said, the next thing that would have been 2012, if you remember that.
I do.
And then 2012 came, and then everyone, oh, remember 2012. Oh, don't worry, it's the end of the month. And then that shitty ass movie came out in
Yeah.
2012.
Well, it's also another time because the way calendars were set up, there's like a day, or because of daylight savings time, it was like, yeah, and it happened. It wasn't really an apocalyptic, but I was in like about to graduate, and I was like, man, what a stupid time for this shit to happen. Like, you couldn't have killed me before I was about to graduate. Like, I'm gonna be done with school, and now you're gonna kill me. Like, that's what I was saying. I'm like, whatever, man. If it happens, like, at least school's done.
I
Oh,
was
that's
in
funny.
grade 8 at the time.
Hey, Sarah, it's nice to see you.
Hi, that was a weird place to join the
Holy
conversation.
Hera, holy Christ, you're loud.
I apologize.
Oh no, we're good now. Oh wow, sorry for anyone's ears we broke. That was everything's good now. I guess I have
I
a
think you just had hers turned up.
Not a huge shock, man. Pretty quiet.
Yeah, we were talking about the Mayan calendar, 2012, where nothing happened.
but we could like
A lot of people
remember the
suspicious.
whole slew of shitty ass that came out that whole like 2 years before. Like you had the only good one. The only good one was The Day After Tomorrow. And that one is still like a
The Jay
That
Gyllenhaal
was
B
the one
plus
that
movie.
wrote-
That's only like a B plus movie. And then you had all the other disaster movies after.
I mean, that's literally because that was the only one that had any star power behind it.
And any willingness to act. Everything else after that was just so stupid. Because then once they couldn't do the natural disaster arc, they're like, oh, what other disaster could we milk for apocalypse money? Ah, zombies. Let's make tons of zombie movies.
Yeah.
It was like
TV series.
a whole apocalypse era.
My parents bought this like 4-pack of disaster movies, and they were all focused on the United States. And it struck me so much that not a single one of them ever mentioned Canada, like the impact that these terrible things happening in the United States would have on Canada. One of them was literally that the United States was splitting in half. I think it was like up the Mississippi River. And so it split like all the way to Hudson Bay. But it never once mentioned the fact that Canada was.
Yeah, because Americans are.
Hey, the one time they did mention us in a disaster movie was Day After Tomorrow, and it was that scene where does the line across America, and they're like, what about our friends to the north? And then he just, this Quaid just looks at them and goes,
Crosses it off.
no, he just looks at them and goes, they're already dead.
Yeah.
just murks us.
Wow. So rude.
Yeah, I remember that.
Fuck, that was good.
I remember watching that in school.
I remember watching that on South Park when they draw fucking Randy's there.
Okay, I want to know why you guys watched it in school. I mean,
For me, in my
Science.
school, it was like the-
Oh yeah, they probably totally want. Like Sarah, I'll be honest. In grade 8 or 9 for science class, we watched The Core.
I watched The Matrix in grade 10 for Bible class. That was interesting.
Well, because he's Jesus.
I
No,
understand
it's
that.
not Jesus.
Yes, he is.
No.
He
Yeah,
gets,
No.
Matrix.
he rises again. He is the one. He is chosen by the higher power, which in that case is the Matrix. And he was one of 6. In the Old Testament that I look to, there's 5 different prophets and then Jesus. It's a Jesus figure. And then at the end, when he dies in the 3rd movie, they do the whole Jesus. No, it's so overtly a Jesus mythos.
It really is.
Maybe, but
That's why they showed it to you.
No, that's not why we watched it. We were looking at Hinduism and stuff in it, and Buddhism.
But
There's not a whole lot of that in there. There's some.
No, there's a ton.
there's actually quite a bit. But it's about Jesus. Jesus is Keanu Reeves. Look at it, asking yourselves this. Why does it look like he hasn't aged since that movie? In Bill and Ted, he looks young. And then he does The Matrix, and then he hasn't aged for, 30 years now?
See him in the new Bill and Ted, he looks kind of old.
But they had to put makeup on him. They had to put makeup on him. I saw that. The other guy, they didn't, because the other guy looks rough.
Yes and no, but no, his age is starting to tell.
Yeah. His shrine is finally reached 2 centuries old.
Right? Just like Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage will never look old. As long as he can keep acting, it'll fuel his life. What?
An aging vampire.
No, he's Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray is Nicolas Cage. Makes so much sense. No wonder he's so crazy.
There's a Victorian of like it's exactly like Nicolas Cage.
That's fucking nuts.
Silver kind of.
So the apocalypse. I always love when they show it. But like you see the Halo version where like a bunch of aliens invade and they try to blow up the planet. But I've never had that game.
You're the fall of it.
If you haven't, I'd say watch the cutscenes and stuff on or something like they have the whole game movie.
The game plays a little
movie. It's pretty good. It's the characters that are they're the horsemen of the apocalypse to protect the apocalypse, essentially. The angels more especially and their job is to protect them to in the story they talk about how again mankind was supposed to be ready to face them, and in the game they're not ready to face them, so the horsemen have to protect them.
It sounds like Evangelion, and I know you've never seen it. So
Yeah,
I know
it is.
It is?
To some degree, it is. Not exactly, but it's. I misunderstood what you meant. I thought you meant like, as the type of like angelic of sorts. It has that kind of feel.
Yeah. No, if you ever watched Evangelion, Andrew, it's different, obviously, but it sounds a lot like Evangelion. Evangelion, one of my favorite animes, post-apocalyptic as well, kinda. Angels, so it restarts, and so humans, the devil says, if you manifest me and my demon lords onto Earth, we'll let you pilot us and fight for your freedom. The premise is Satan and the greater demons of hell don't want humanity to stop existing, because if humanity stops existing, they stop getting souls, and that's the whole duality of the Earth. Is it's tied to hell. And heaven has no tie to this. So if they destroy the Earth and restart it, they don't give a shit. So basically, it becomes.
Sounds like Legion almost.
Yeah, kinda. but that's essentially the story. And then, but to pilot each greater demon, you have to, and they get like you have to take these kids and insert them right into their brains, and the kid has to have the same emotions and the same values as that demon. So the main character is the son of the leader of this corporation, and he gets treated like shit. He gets ignored. He gets devalued. He gets beaten. And so he's super angry and hates everything and hates everyone, and he pilots Satan. And he kills all the angels. It's
Wow.
it's so hard to watch sometimes because I'll be honest, the main character is the whiniest the whiniest main character you've ever followed. There's never a scene where he's not crying. But when he gets inside the demon android bodysuit thing, you're like, and it's not even for like 5 minutes. It's like for like a whole like 30 minutes that they'll do this. Like each episode's like 45 minutes, and you're like, okay, I forgive the 15 minutes of soul crushing watching this kid just hate his life.
The thing with Darksiders, the way their story was set up was essentially an angel was trying to trick the devils into starting the war, essentially, and break the seals that held them separate. But they end up accidentally calling the horsemen instead, and the calling of the horsemen breaks the seals. But the angels cause it instead of
The D instead of the D. The D always wants to break the seals, Andrew.
So
it makes sense.
They end up breaking. They end up trying to blame it on the horsemen, and the horsemen answer to like some council that is a third party. They kind of they keep their hands clean of stuff, but they just keep the horsemen in check, and they end up like that horseman ends up being chained and imprisoned essentially. In the next game, you have to work to find the evidence to free him, essentially. And where that goes, you play as one of the other horsemen, and so on. As like sequels, there's only 3 so far, but you end up playing as each different horseman as the sequel progresses. You start as War in the first one when the war starts, and you start as Death in the second one when he's trying to redeem.
It sounds. I mean, I've definitely played a lot. Like that definitely reminds me of like the most recent Devil May Cry. Same kind of deal.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
man, like, and that's definitely one way to go with post-apocalyptic, where it's like, or you could go hyper-realism religious, like the Book of fucking Eli.
You can take it from any culture, right? Same with like Ragnarok from the Vikings mythology.
How many, like, other than the recent Thor movie, to take that out, when's the last time you saw a Ragnarok style End of Days? And if I swear to God you mention any of those fucking death MCU,
Atlantis. In the second, they meet Odin, and Odin brings about essentially what's our extra.
what are we talking about? I've never.
The first.
Are we talking the animated one? Just so we're clear, Kit Falbo got you out. He said Cabin. I'll agree. That's decently Ragnarok.
I guess, yeah. But yeah, no, I meant Atlantis. The second movie, it's the second one. The people of Atlantis, like the princess of Atlantis, she's going around learning of other cultures that have been secreted away of sorts. That she's not the only culture that has been, and the lead premise ends up leading to Odin starting Ragnarok, and she has to attempt to stop it.
I'm sorry. Are we talking about the animated movie right now?
Yes, I am.
There's a second one.
There's a second?
Yes, there's a second. There's a second Atlantis.
This is like me finding out about Grease 2 for the first time.
The editor of Silence or the crowd. I'm the only one that watched the.
Go back on that. Did
I
you
think
say there's
so.
a Grease too?
You haven't heard of Grease 2?
I didn't know that.
It's so bad.
Wait, what?
It's so bad. It's so good. It's about riding motorcycles and oh my god, it's so
Oh,
bad.
God.
But the actors in it
The
give it
jungle too?
100%. It's you have to watch it. It's so bad. It's good. Grease
Yeah, Atlantis
2.
2. It's a great one. It really is. Yeah, Milo's Richard. That's what it is.
I mean, I'll take your word for it. I'll check it out. Sometimes Disney second movies are good, like Aladdin 2.
Isn't the first one
That's pretty good.
Michael Fox?
I don't remember, honestly.
Next, you're gonna tell me there's a second Treasure Planet, and then I'm gonna have to go to Ontario and punch you.
I wish there was a second Treasure Planet.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's in talks of being remade.
No, there's the second Atlantis is not. I wouldn't say it's as good as the first one, but it's pretty good. It's a good follow up, and the way it takes off from other cultures.
Sure.
It's really great.
Hey man, it sounds like something I'll waste 90 minutes of my life watching at some point.
They spreading out the different cultures. They have a feel of like native cultures, and they have a feel of like Norwegian kind of like Celtic cultures, and then they get into one the Vikings at another point where you meet up, where you see Odin, and he gets the spear of destiny, and he brings a part of the essentially the apocalypse.
Okay. So I'll give you that one. Let's give me a mainstream movie. If that's not mainstream, if that's what you call mainstream, then it's a downward. I think my point is kind of proven. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not saying it's a movie. I'm just saying 4 to 5 people didn't know that thing existed until this moment. I could take a poll in chat. I kind of want to know how many people in chat actually know that Atlantis 2 existed. Be honest.
Yeah, check chat for this one. It's my internet says good. That wasn't the main one I was talking about. I was just using Drive for Ragnarok as an example.
I think my point still stands though. Like, how often do you see Ragnarok? How often, other than the new Thor movie and I guess Atlantis 2 and Cabin in the Woods?
What about the TV?
That on Netflix, yeah.
But is that actually about the end?
Was Vikings
Kind of.
It's a modern. No, Ragnarok is about the gods being in like a modern world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's what that was.
It's all in Swedish, but it is about the coming of Ragnarok.
Oh.
That's the one with the if I'm not-
What?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
What?
You're about Ragnarok more video games, more so than like
Yeah.
movies and TV shows. Like there was a number of games that had done like Ragnarok. They did Vikings. The Battle for Midgard was one that talked about Ragnarok a little bit.
In literature, there's the whole Magnus Chase series.
Kit
But
Falbo in chat said there's a new George Clooney movie on Netflix that he thinks maybe. I don't know. I don't watch Netflix. I watch everything free on the internet because I'm a pirate. Hence the flag.
There's something to admit on the internet.
Diddly diddly diddly
Oh,
dee,
yeah.
being a pirate.
Yeah, the Midnight Sky.
Ooh. Midnight Sky. Ooh, I'll have to look that up. That's 2 things I need to watch now. But yeah. There's also the end. Something else you only see. Actually, there's only one place I've ever seen this apocalypse, and that's in Elder Scrolls. And good on them. And that is the end of a Kalpa. When do you ever hear about Kalpas except in Elder Scrolls? A Kalpa is, I believe, Hindu.
what the fuck?
And what it is a Kalpa is a cycle of the universe. The universe goes in cycles, and then it rebirths. And each rebirth is a new Kalpa. Oblivion
Dragon Age.
calls them Kalpas. Dragon Age does that too?
Yes. Every new year, their religion's pope starts a new age, and the age is defined by a major event that has been called
The world? Because that's what a Kalpa does, right?
And they're leading up to the next one currently, which is going to literally shatter the entire world.
Ooh. See, that's what a Kalpa does. Is it's not just a people dying. It's usually a reshaping. So in Elder Scrolls, what's going on now from the Morathic era to the certain year, whatever it is in Elder Scrolls, that's still this one Kalpa. But there was a time before that where the slowed reign and these like crustacean people reign and humans and elves weren't even on Nirn, and that was a different Kalpa. And that's it goes through cycles. That's the beauty. But you only ever heard about it in a game. I want to hear about I want to do a show or a movie that has something to do with like the end of all things, but an actual Kalpa end. Not just everything dies and then that's it.
To touch on in a movie, but maybe in like a TV show I can see it. But video games does it pretty good. Like with Dragon Age, you hear a lot about it through prehistory. They have the very physical world of Dragon Age, and they also have a magical one called the Fade, which is where your character, they say, goes when you sleep. It's also connected to spirits and demons and things like that. In the past, there was a time where those two weren't separate and they were one action. And you end up learning about how a sorcerer, essentially, or a wizard, pretty much split that connection in a way to stop the current those gods, but they were just really strong elves. In the moment they were gods, they were considered above like their people away by splitting the magic from the physical aspects of the world and made them into two separate places. In the leading coming up game, he plans to do it again, but collide them. So would literally tears in the time when he did it with the magic, all their buildings, everything in their lifestyle had magic connected to it. So when he took the magic away, everything was held together by magic was destroyed, including many parts of the world and their buildings, their societies. It's like a living tool for them, and to now have that completely torn away, and now as we start to smash everything again and kill thousands of people, destroy a good chunk of the world, and have to force a new era of people adjusting to a new medical physical level of being connected with something.
I can see what you're getting at, and it kind of is. It's not exact.
Colliding two realms together, essentially, that were already one, that were separated. It's hard to explain to some degree on the level, and you'd have to play through the game.
I kind of get what you're saying. It doesn't exactly encapsulate a Kalpa. A Kalpa is the end of everything, and then it restarts. This is usually even the Aedra and the Daedra, even they change during the Kalpa.
Yeah, that the gods of their time too did, because their gods were banished to this magical plane, where their people no longer had that connection from them, and then those people had to live without having any access to magic, where they spent literally eons with it.
That sounds more like a Dragon Break to me, though. Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, I understand what you mean, but in the level where it caused cataclysms around the world and literally shattered their landscape, and millions have died falling into the abyss of nothing because of it. It wasn't just like the rending of magic and their gods. It was like literally the rending of it from the entire planet, and it was so thoroughly inbred to it.
I get it.
And it's the only thing in existence currently. They haven't expanded on like a multi-universe kind of thing.
I get it.
So it's going to expand on like a universal kind of scale.
Okay. All right. Sarah, since you write fantasy, how would you do fantasy post-apocalyptically? since we're talking about.
That would depend on a lot of factors.
Well, would you?
Why
let's-
the world then?
Well, it'd be more. That's a good question. How would you do that? Because usually, like, it's easy for me when I do science fiction because I can say, the previous civilization ruined the world. I could say they fucking Keplered it, or they put too much in the sky, it blocked out the sun, and then it created talk. The age-old nuclear war that pretty much blew up everything and irradiated the land like Fallout. Or I could do, you know what I mean? Like, for science fiction, I have so many avenues to go with post-apocalyptic. It's not even funny. In fact, it's usually, from what we've seen in most media, it's usually the easiest to do. Because you can work in, like, Mad Max kind of way, where I pretty much decide that everyone is wearing leather armor. Or I could be a real bastard and go Waterworld, where everyone lives on ships. To anyone
One
who's
island out in the middle of nowhere.
Australia, it's somewhere. We need to find Australia.
I mean, if you pay attention to how they all talk, I feel like that's where they are.
Yep.
That's true.
You know, in like, apparently in the lore of that movie, they're actually going to Colorado because it is the highest place in the world, and everyone forgot how to star chart. If you knew how to star chart, which doesn't, like, it's so easy that it just blows my mind, that whole movie, that they can't just look up at the sky and be like, all right, we're almost there. Oh, look, hey, we found Colorado.
That's crazy. But
Yeah.
I would say, like, in fantasy, you have all those same options and all those same choices. You just maybe have different things going on in the world. Like, maybe you have more races than humans. So you wonder about how different races survived this apocalypse. But otherwise, I would say, honestly, it's not that different. I think theoretically, or like technically, doesn't post-apocalyptic fall into the category of sci-fi anyways?
See, now, I used to think that, but you could make an argument that it doesn't. You could make an argument that it depends on, like what I said at the beginning of the stream that you missed, is that apocalyptic, if you think post-apocalyptic and apocalyptic, the word apocalyptic kind of originated from the erupting of Mount Vesuvius in Pompeii, right? That was an apocalyptic event that destroyed an entire civilization. And the post-apocalyptic society that rose out of that moved to Crete and had to restart. And it's not as crazy in fantasy risen after, but that's the point, is that is technically a post-apocalyptic society.
That's kind of what I was explaining in like Dragon Age. It kind of has that apocalyptic feel too from that.
And I definitely got that, yeah.
Aesthetic.
Yeah, honestly though, I think it's the same thing. You just have to consider technology, what technology they had beforehand, and what is still left afterwards, and who lives in this world. And otherwise, it's the same thing. You have to just think about what caused it and how people are dealing with it.
But how do you, like, so what would you do? Like, how do you write that? So, like I said, like, it's so easy for me. Like, think of Douglas Adams. We've both read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think Jeremy has too. But anyone who has knows that the world dies in, what, 2 lines? Is it 2 lines or 3 lines?
It's pretty quick.
It's pretty quick. It's a bulldozer. He watches from a window, and he just watches the bulldozer literally just blow up the earth. Done. And then it's about his post-apocalyptic tour through the galaxy. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Douglas Adams. Shout out to the dolphins. Thanks for all the fish.
Yeah. And the number 42.
It's
Which means death.
So, I don't know that there's an answer to what you're asking me, because how I would do it would depend on what point I wanted to get across, what I wanted to be the reason for it.
That's
It
fair.
would depend very specifically on what I was trying to do with it.
Well, let's let's attack it from a different angle. Have you okay? So you've watched a lot of media with post-apocalyptic and apocalyptic events. If you were to incorporate it, or let's say twist it in a way that you felt was more subtle, because let's take something overt, like something stupid, like what's a stupid apocalyptic movie?
2012.
I've seen the Book of Eli, so I mean that might be a good place to start.
Perfect. So if you were to
Don't
take
watch a lot of movies.
if you were to take Book of Eli, because that's a great one, because you have the fantasy element of giving him power that you don't really into is a fucking Bible until like what, halfway through the movie or something stupid.
Bible written in braille.
At the end, to the very end.
Yeah, very end. So
because you don't know what kind of book it is, and that even when you look what kind of book it is, when you read it.
Also, I just want to be clear. That Bible was definitely not written in Braille. It takes so many pages to write Braille. A Bible written in Braille would be incredibly long. It is published in many, many volumes.
Plus, I think it was New Testament.
did you not see how big that book was? That book was like this thick.
It was pretty big.
He had chains like a warlock walking around with his tome.
Yes, but that is nothing in Braille. That is like
Oh my god.
the first 3 books of the Bible, like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. Like maybe that would fit in that.
Jeremy, you
Braille
should have
takes
let
so
my
many pages.
Jeremy, you should have let Maurice become blind. I could have become Eli.
Why haven't you thought about doing that already? You already have your book. And
I didn't stop you.
And I have a sword!
You already have the last bit of the mother, John. It's written in your book.
Anyway, please keep going, Sarah.
I don't know what else to say. I was just objecting to the fact that the book can't possibly be the Bible in Braille. It can't even be the New Testament. It's not possible.
Okay, so what would you do?
Back to John's question, how would you interpret it into using that kind of example?
Like, how would I do that in what? What am I starting with here? What was the world before
You're
that?
starting with your
Like one of the
life.
things that you've been working on.
Sorry?
Let's heard a little bit. So one of the stories perhaps you've been working on. You've told us a bit about it.
Okay, so where it's going to end is we're going to end in a slightly futuristic society where there's like hover cars and stuff, but there's still multiple races. There's still elves and green people and blue people and purple people with wings. Maybe I might get rid of those.
No orange people?
No orange people.
Hashtag Orange Lives Matter.
One specific
There are actually like sort of yellowy, orangey, sand-colored people.
I'll take it.
Tragic enough.
But, so, will you have magic survive?
No, there will not. Magic is already gone at that point. Yeah.
Dun, dun,
So
dun.
what would happen is I would say there would be some sort of natural disaster, maybe a solar flare or something would happen, and it would just it would wipe out the technology. And I think really you would end up in a similar point to the Book of Eli. So it's almost sci-fi.
One of my favorite, on that same note, I actually just remembered it. There's an anime, if anyone wants to watch it, they should. It's called Desert Punk. One of my favorite animes, because it's about a guy who's in cryosleep before the world ends and wakes up like 500 years later. And he's extremely smart. And it's basically about him going... The subplot that you have to figure out is why he's going across the world, because he's an asshole. It's everywhere. No. The whole reason he's going across the world is because he's the only one who knows how any of the technology left around works. He shuts it down and destroys it. Because he knows, like, if anyone gets their hand on any of this tech with the way the world is at the current state... They could literally... Wait, but the twist is, at the last episode of the first season... I can't... You keep stuttering.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Does it say he joins the Institute? That's the twist?
He... What? Yes! Actually, yes! That is literally... If you wanted to put it in those terms, yes. The twist is, once he destroys all the modern technology... he then realizes he's the only one who knows how to rebuild any of it or use any of it. So then the start of the second season is he's now the head of the Institute, if as it were. Really good show. It's only 2 seasons. This was way before Fallout.
So, John, I'm still trying to think about your question to me about like fantasy. I think if I were to just resemble a natural disaster, like it would wipe a chunk of people because the world is where it is right now. It wouldn't really change that much.
It wouldn't be a plague locust, or maybe darkness, or maybe a giant fiery tornado, or
It could be, but it doesn't have to be. Those were a little localized too,
Best apocalypse ever.
It was a pretty cool apocalypse.
That
The whole death of the first born thing kind of sucked.
All these things happening at the same time.
Let's turn this over.
At the same time, just like right after each other.
That sounds like at the same time almost.
At the same time.
We'll say sequential order, not the same time.
Yeah, there we go.
Makes sense,
Like
yeah.
the locust ended before the frogs began, or whatever order it was in.
I don't know if there's anyone around to dispute that anymore.
So
I mean,
in my book, it
Is
was
it different?
every day there was something new, and some of them overlapped with each other.
Yeah.
Like everything went, and then every light a little so that the giant meteors that rained out of the sky could be seen.
In the Bible, it's not that
That
specific
sounds
about
familiar
it.
to a game.
Like it tells about all of them, but it doesn't tell so specifically that you can know if they stopped or what.
Anyway, it's all religion in the end.
Exactly.
But turning towards developing an apocalypse, let's turn to Sir Jeremy, who
Ooh, might you have some comments with that?
who's currently has or has not had experience with
I think we were the kind of plus for development.
Well, here's how I want to put it. I start the question I have for Jeremy. So when I write my stories, or when I do anything with sci-fi or post-apocalyptic society, I start there. I never move into it, or I never move through it. Mostly because I don't know how to not tie up loose ends that don't matter. You know what I mean? It's just ingrained in me to tie up loose ends, especially when I'm writing. So like I run a D&D campaign that is based in post-apocalyptic Eberron, right? I did not want to do a game where it was running through that or just before, because it's not something I'm comfortable with. You, however, I have somewhat in-depth knowledge that you have some idea, at least somewhat more than I do, of how you run through that. How you're able, even if you didn't set it up, you're able to tie everything in such a way, like if I can be so bold, like what you did with one of the characters in game for our audience. What he did is he threw us all like in the future or something. And one of our characters found out that his grandchildren actually survived and made a city. And he was able to beautifully tie it with the character in such a way that it shows his actual fruits of his labor. And he's been able to do that with a few with characters. And so my what originally actually intrigued this topic was the ability to weave that. Like I have never been able to have that skill, but I would like to know what if it's even, you know what I mean? Take it away. I'm just gonna keep talking.
Plus, there's the fact that Caden really caused the apocalypse, right?
You have no proof of that.
It's not any of that. I more want to talk about the weaving it. Like how how do you take something and take it to a conclusion that doesn't just make sense but is fun for either the reader or the player? How do we do that?
A lot is taking notes and I don't know, paying attention to what you guys do. Like a huge part of that, I would say, yeah.
Kit says tying up loose ends can be bad. If you tie up everything in the end of the book, it can make stuff and feel off. Yeah, I guess you're right. Unless you're doing like a long book series. And I hear what you're saying, Jeremy. What I would say though is more that okay, so you followed what we were doing and you took notes. But what made you, how did you know you how how do I word this? When you write your possible storylines or when you imagine them, however you do it, what brought you to the conclusion that this will work best or this will fit? How, or better yet, how do you make it fit? Do you build the blocks and then make the around it? Do you write the universe and then put the blocks in it? And then furthermore, if you could go a little further on that, do you whether that's before the apocalypse or before the event, after, or is that something that you lead into?
A lot of the time, it's like, especially if you just start throwing the blocks into place, the story will just start writing itself, really. At least that's how it is for me. I don't know if other people have the same creative process, but I don't know. I start putting in blocks, even if I throw in, for example, like I throw in B and I throw in and then I throw in like E, right? The rest of the alphabet starts to fill itself out for me. I don't know. I just kind of see and envision stories that way.
So when you say
it helps that like you guys gave me all the blocks. I've been writing notes and stories like we've been playing for over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I didn't have anything to work with either.
But okay, so when taking those that information, what you're telling me is you basically envisioned, like you looked at the future and just started, see, that's where I get lost. Like at what point did you
The obviousness going over your head.
I mean, for example, take a look at real history. You don't remember all the little minor events. You only really need, I don't know, like a handful of really important historical game-changing, like you said earlier, right?
A huge sacrifice of a town to summon a demon lord.
So
You know about the Pompeys, but you don't
Or
know
the creative
life of
party indecisive of you guys picking up every quest line you came across, but then not doing anything with them afterwards.
I guess I'm more interested in how you draw the gap. Is that I think that's the best way I can put it. Like how you pencil in the bridge from where your protagonists leave the story and where they end back in. And that whole time gap, whatever it may be, and in whatever medium you're doing, how do you do it? I guess just now, because that's where I find is, I guess, where I have the most difficulty is in those time jumps or in those gaps of time from like if I'm doing it between books or if I'm doing it between stories or if I'm doing it in game. And how do you pace it? That's really what it gets down to. I have a real problem with over pacing or under pacing. And to be able to do a gap like that and pace it correctly, or at least pace it in a way that makes logical sense, like I've really had a problem with that. And I guess that's really what I want to get to is
Like the pacing, eh?
between.
I mean, I've seen how you flesh out your NPCs. You don't picture what they would do in 1,000 years if given the time.
No, are you kidding? Have you met my characters?
Maybe that gives them some kind of agency in their own kind of everyday life.
Right? I don't know. I must just read and play a lot of video games.
As I say, I when I made my characters, I've tried to make that answer.
You draw a lot of correlations. See, that's where your weakness as a player comes. Is you do too much at once.
I'm also very short-sighted, because I don't exactly.
No, Andrew. That's Andrew's thing. He gets too widely focused.
I have too big, farther long.
Here's the thing I'm interested in. He gets interested in that for a while. Then here's the thing I'm interested in. He gets interested in that for a while, right?
Oh, look,
none of his plans
the
are
dragon.
get past the half point.
I think too far and have too big exuberant ideas before thinking of how to get from that point to there.
Well, that's good.
Like, well, how do we do these things? Well, that'll come in time.
You have
I'm glad you
point
finally
A
realize it.
And point C.
I know that.
You're missing point Q.
I'm usually A to F, but I'm missing B to E.
But just to get back to your point, Jeremy, like I guess because like you mentioned NPCs, and I guess what I was thinking is that I'm really short-sighted, I guess, in that term. Like I can see where my story's developing, but I never look beyond. So what you would say is try to imagine where I guess.
Well, everybody has a story.
NPCs
You have to remember what your just remember what your NPC story is.
They are a person. They still have a life.
They had to have done something beforehand. They weren't
And they
just
have some idea of what they're going forward at some point.
Or maybe in your case,
They
maybe
could
your
be a
NPC was
blacksmith
immediately
who made a
summoned,
baker.
and they don't know their history, and that becomes a whole story in itself.
Well, I mean, like if you look at my characters that I build, they usually have very vague backstories because I don't like to embellish. I like to especially when I write, it's usually the backstory is very sparse because it doesn't matter to the story. I look whether I write.
It very much does. You have to know where your characters came from to know where they're going.
It's true.
I guess that makes a lot of sense.
That being said, I also tend to have very sparse backstories, so.
Sounds like something we both
I
can
do
improve
for
on.
small NPCs and stuff, but if they're major character driving people, then or NPCs or whatever, they're fleshed out.
Yeah.
I know where they've been so that I can see where they're
Well,
going.
I mean, look at what I did to my NPC in game, and look what I did to the main NPC I had, Headmaster. I didn't even give him a name. I didn't care. And that's a microcosm.
He's got one of the most expansive backstories of the entire story.
And and I didn't care. And I made it a point to not care. And that's not, you could say that's because I was playing my character as a cult leader, but that's also because in my mind it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It never did, because I'm always so focused on the story at hand. Which I'll start to consider that. Actually, funny, I never thought of that. The NPCs have lives too.
We're not the only heroes of our story, John.
Well, that's missing the point of D&D.
Hey, you're not the hero of your own story.
Every single person.
And we're not the heroes. We're the villains.
Everybody
It says right up there, the villains.
I thought they were just the remnants of a failed timeline.
Every single person
Well, there's also that.
thinks they're the main character of their story, John. Every single character.
We're the
Exactly.
villains.
They are the results of a failed timeline. They're not the heroes of their. But maybe now they have a chance to be.
Oh,
They
that's
can
not
try to
true.
be.
Villains over and over.
Oh, for us.
Seeing as their first idea was to murder a bunch of people to get things.
We're not
My
fair.
character
Hey, you don't know that. We did that in our minds. they're
No,
Mayans.
no, only you
Probably
did.
does
Only
know
you
that.
did. Everybody else spoke very
That's
Yeah.
true. Only I did. I was sat there silently because I'm smart.
That's what it is.
That's exactly what
If
it
you
is.
don't realize that I like my character likes murdering people, then you're.
It's
not
okay.
listening
It's
to
okay,
the show.
guys. Eventually, I will break all of them, and they'll all become dutiful followers, whether they like it or not. Just gotta earn their trust first.
Try.
Oh, it's all about earning the trust first. Anyway, that being said, the hour's hit. C4. Beside me was further down. Bruce Goblin. Oh, that was Sir Jeremy. It was Insanieac. And we were the villains on the Villains Talk
Passive
Show.
aggressive.
You're your villains.
We were the villains.
We are the villain.
You had nothing better to do, but thank you for spending here. We had time with you and with everyone. I'm sure you know us, please.
Just an NN tattoo on
And like, you know, if you want, there's other things down there that you can look at. I'm not even gonna say them because it's your choice. I care, but it's up to you. At the same time,
I do highly recommend the app.
You don't care.
I do hand the app. Go if you can also follow Insanieac on Insanieac TV, Twitch.
That was a good one.
And yeah, you can also do things like follow people. This is where we tell people to follow other people. Disguised Toast, go sub to Disguised Toast on YouTube. Go Caparian's good one. Shroud if you want to watch stories. Puffin Forest if you want D&D stories.
Oh, yeah.
Puffin Forest is great actually.
It really is.
Viva La Dirt League. Who else? There's also Insanieac, the other Insanieac, who's like spelt correctly Insanieac, that you can also sub to. So there's both. There's sub to everyone. Just go on YouTube and just start clicking sub to everyone. And then if they ask you who told you to do that, tell them the villains did.
With very little context.
Terrible sponsor with no